Hi there. I wanted to come on here because I've been getting some requests from people for some resources about educating themselves in these current times. You'll have to excuse the background noise. I have two foster kittens. They're being a little crazy right now. So I just wanted to come on, and I'm probably going to be doing a few of these videos with different themes like how to talk to your kids about race and ways to educate yourself, whether that be through books and podcasts. And as a teacher, I realize not everybody learns the same, so I want to provide everyone with a variety of resources. And feel free to share these videos. I'm going to make them public on Facebook here and on YouTube, so anybody can go on and view them. So I'll start by saying I'm obviously not an expert in this field, but I have been doing my own anti-racism work on myself for the last 10 years. For those of you who don't know us personally, we have 3 daughters who are Ethiopian that we adopted. Our twins 10 years ago and Celia 6.5 years ago. And I grew up in a very, very white suburban area of Ohio, and I was incredibly naive about race. I was definitely raised to believe that, you're colorblind and everyone's treated the same and all of that. But our culture definitely does not teach that. I recently read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. Incredible book for so many reasons, but she does have a very good chapter in there on racism. She talks about how women often talk to each other about kind of the way we were raised in a very kind of patriarchal, misogynistic society, and that's kind of ingrained in us, and we've had to do some work in unlearning that. And again, that's not our parents' fault. It's just the way our society is structured and the way our society is set up. And when we talk about that within our friend groups, we don't ever apologize or get defensive. Like, well, I'm not misogynistic. I'm not patriarchal. We don't get defensive about that. But when it comes to race, white people often get very defensive. And we tend to say, well, I'm not a racist. They jump to their own defense so quickly. And I just would like you to think about it in the same way that you think about how society teaches us about misogyny and patriarchal. That, like, the women's place in the home, and that, men are the leaders of the home, and that the women need to be subservient, especially in a lot of Christian circles. This is pretty common from my own experience. So race is the same way. We were raised in a society that's set up to not treat Black people the same way it treats white people, to not afford the same opportunities to Black people as it does to white people. We were raised in a way that developed stereotypes in our brains. That's not necessarily something we need to apologize for, but it is something we need to work on unlearning. So that's what we all need to be doing right now. As a white person, I highly, highly encourage you to sit back and learn. Listen and learn, and listen some more and learn some more. So, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's what I've been learning over the past 10 years, and I've only scraped the surface. I have some books on order for myself because I'm continuing to find resources, and there's just so much for me to learn about what I don't know. So I think today what we'll focus on is just holding yourself accountable and really doing the work to look deep inside yourself and figure out where you need to do work. There's a really good graphic that looks like a pyramid that I'm going to put up on the screen. And let's see, let me find it here so I can reference it. So it is talking about, at the very tip of the pyramid, talking about overt white supremacy and racism. Now, I don't think that I really have surrounded myself with people that would fall into that top part of the pyramid, people that are committing hate crimes, doing blackface, are members of the KKK, saying the N-word. Those kind of things are obviously racist things to do. I think we can all agree on that. The problem is that the majority of racism falls under that black line in the bottom of the pyramid. And I'll kind of go through for you and share with you some things that I've realized that I do over the past 10 years. Maybe I used to do. Maybe it's something I'm still working on for myself. So let's see. I definitely would fall under the white silence in the past because I was too afraid to say something. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I was worried about offending people. So when something made me uncomfortable, or I realized that something wasn't okay that somebody was saying, even with jokes often, then I was afraid to speak up and correct that person. What's another one? Oh, I definitely believed in the bootstrap theory. You've heard, oh, they just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Yeah, that's just not true. Once you educate yourself, you'll realize that while on the surface it would appear, and that's what I used to believe, that black people have the same opportunities that white people do, the systems that we have in place in this country, that's just not the case. They are set up to fail. They are not set up to succeed. So that is, yeah, that's a yucky thing to say. Don't say that. That's just not right. And if you feel that way, then you need to work on educating yourself on why that is not true. What else on here? Let me see. Okay. Oh, there's so many good ones on here. Oh, people often tell the denial of racism. I guess I used to fall on the side of thinking that we had kind of moved past racism in this country and there wasn't very much. And then I adopted black children, and I really have seen that that is not the case. I've definitely been still working on learning more about immigration policies. I used to definitely be more pro-anti, that doesn't make any sense, more anti-immigration than I am now. I'm become much more pro-immigration, and I'm learning more about the policies. And we'll do one more. I never really understood Columbus Day until I began teaching it in elementary schools and started doing research and realizing how yucky Columbus Day is and how it just encourages the narrative of white superiority. So I encourage you to take a look at that graphic for yourself and find out where you fall in that and really do some work on the things that you find yourself still dealing with on that pyramid. So that's a good place to start. The next graphic I'm going to show you is a graphic on becoming anti-racist. So it shows 3 different zones that we might fall in. I feel like everybody falls in one of these if you want to do the work of becoming an anti-racist. So the first one is the fear zone, which I was definitely in for a long time. Again, avoiding hard questions, not wanting to ruffle feathers, not wanting to make other people uncomfortable, and not really honestly wanting to see some of the ugly beliefs in some of the people that I love, if we're being honest. The next level is the learning zone, and I still consider myself mainly in this zone, where I'm continuing to educate myself on things that make me uncomfortable and on the history of racism and the history of black people in our country and trying to be vulnerable about my own biases. And then the last one is the growth zone. I also consider myself in this zone as well, probably straddling the two. I'm trying here to educate my peers how racism harms, our whole society. And I try not to let mistakes deter me from being better. And that's something we need to remember as white people. We're not experts on this. So we're going to make mistakes and we're going to say dumb things. And when we do, again, we can't be defensive. We have to sit back and listen and learn and be corrected by people of color who know better than us. So take a look at that, save that in your phone, and it'll be a nice thing to kind of reference and go back to. And the last graphic I'm going to show you is about the dangers of the I don't see color mentality. And I've seen a lot of people saying this. And the problem with that is, number one, it's just not true. Everybody sees color. Everybody notices the colors, the differences between us. And by saying that to my children specifically is how I interpret it, is negating the beauty of their uniqueness, the beauty of their differences. Saying that you don't see color negates all of their experiences that they have as a Black person. Because I'll tell you what, society sees color, professions see color, police see color, teachers see color and treat my kids differently sometimes. We've had that happen. And unfortunately, sometimes when that's happened, and I've come in for a parent-teacher conference and they see that their parents are white, oh, well, then they get to ride on my white privilege. They get treated better because they have white parents. That's not okay. They shouldn't be treated differently in the first place. So, the dangers of the I don't see color mentality. You can't fix something that you can't see. And I will tell you 100% it is broken and needs fixing. It limits your ability to appreciate individualism. And the African American community has their own culture. So that is to be valued and not just glazed over by saying that you don't see color. It minimized the struggles of people of color in today's society because they are treated differently. You aren't actively dismantling your own prejudices because we all have them. They are deeply ingrained in your brain and everything you do and everything you think. And that's where you really need to do work on yourself instead of, again, glazing over it with rose-colored glasses and saying you don't see color. And it allows you to ignore the complexities of racial issues. It lets you not have to help do the work to even the playing field. Because we have white privilege, we need to be using it for good. We need to be using it to empower our brothers and sisters of color and changing the systems that are meant to hold them down. So, again, if you are in our lives, in my children's lives, and love my children, I need you to follow along this video series, and I need you to become educated. I need you to read a book. I need you to listen to some podcasts. I need you to read some articles. It's important to our family. It is important to us that you understand the struggles of my children. I don't want one day for you to open up Facebook and see #CharlotteBrat. That is a fear that all of us parents of children of color have. We all fear that for our children. My twins are 14. They're going to be driving soon. Every kid gets pulled over, let's be honest. I don't want to fear that for my children, just to be pulled over by the police. And I'm not saying that police are bad, okay? I have very confusing feelings about what's happening right now with the police because as a white person I was raised that police are safe, police protect you, police are good. You always go to police if you need help with something. That's not how the Black community was raised to believe because the history of policing in this country is disgusting. when it comes to people of color. And I don't think that it boils down to bad cop or good cop. I honestly think, from what I've started researching, that it boils down to the systems and the training that these police officers are given. And again, these underlying mentalities of power. So I'm not going to get into kind of the defunding the police or restructuring that stuff, because that's not my area of expertise. But I definitely need you to know that regardless how I feel about the police in general, I fear for my children to get pulled over by a police officer. And that's not okay. We need to change that. We need to change that, because it shouldn't. I was never fearful of being pulled over by a police officer. I've been pulled over many times. And my only fear is that I can't afford the ticket, or that I'm going to get in trouble with my parent or whatever when I was younger. I never feared for my life. No person should ever be in that position. Ever. That is not okay. And I also want to make it clear that this Black Lives Matter, this time in history, this is not political. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a humanity issue. No matter how you vote, I like to believe that every single person on this planet would believe it's not okay for someone to be murdered. I think we all can agree on that. In general, it's not okay for anyone to be murdered. Now, a whole nother layer, it's not okay for the people who are supposed to be protecting us to be murdering somebody. So this is a humanity issue. As a Christian, I don't even know how I feel about identifying as that anymore, but I'm definitely a follower of Jesus. And as cliche as I thought this was in the 90s with all the bracelets, for me as a Christian, as a Jesus follower, it boils down to, what would Jesus do? If one of God's children was murdered, what would Jesus do? Jesus would work for change. Jesus would fight for change. Jesus would be flipping tables, okay? Jesus is enraged about this. So don't come at me with your politics, because this is not political. We need to use politics. We need to use our leaders in the government to change policies that are causing these things to happen. But whether or not you believe in justice for George Floyd, that's not a political issue. So we need to stop putting politics on such a pedestal in this country. I also want us to remember, and I don't feel like any media is doing a good job of relaying this, that the peaceful protesters and the people looting and rioting are two separate groups. It's not like the peaceful protesters are hanging out longer and then they all of a sudden decide to loot and riot because the sun went down. No, the peaceful protesters are going home, or the peaceful protesters are remaining and still being peaceful. There are fringe groups out there, including white supremacist groups, that are coming in to make it look like these savage black people are looting and rioting, and they shouldn't be trusted. So it is they're trying to change the message. They're trying to change it so that the focus is taken off of the peaceful protesting. Because of course it's more sensational and more entertaining to report on looting and rioting than it is hours and hours of peaceful protesting. So I really, really encourage you to educate yourself on that and be very careful and mindful of what you're posting on Facebook. And I haven't been posting very much because, again, I want to sit back and I want to listen. I have started following so many more leaders of color so that I can sit back and I can listen and I can learn. And the next time I do a video, I will share with you some of those leaders that I encourage you to follow on Instagram and on Facebook and Twitter. I will share with you their different handles on all of those media pages so that you can follow them and you can start ingesting and digesting their words and the information. So hopefully it can be the precipice for you to educate yourself. I will put the graphics that I referenced and showed you in the video down in the comments so that you can save them and reference them later. Feel free to share this. I feel honored that you took the time to listen to me speak tonight, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.